We've got Professor Oyebanji Oyelaran Yeyinka joining us this morning. He's a Senior Special Advisor on Industrialization to the President, AfDB. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Well, it's always important when, as a matter of fact, when many saw some of what we reviewed this morning, talking about World Food Day, how conflict is pushing 12.8 million Nigerians to hunger, and how Nigeria, third of 15 African countries, facing food insecurity, you just wonder, because we've got huge potential, the resources, the capacity, but it just needs to add up, which isn't at the moment. Well, the president of AfDB did speak at that particular conference, talking about certain measures that should be taken. But seeing all of this and the programs, the projects that are being talked about, what kind of potential, what are we staring at now? Because it looks as if we just seem to be scratching the surface.
No, thank you very much. We don't eat potential, as Dr. Adesina always says.
Yeah.
Nobody eats potential. You have a potential, you have resources, you have agriculture, you have minerals, but you must translate that to value addition. Africa has all of these resources. You go to the Congo, Nigeria, everywhere, you have huge. But we haven't been able to transform them into usable, valuable, quality products. This is the bane of our economy. And that's what the president was speaking to at the meeting. He spoke about everything he did when he was Minister of Agriculture, for example, the wheat program, which is now in Sudan and Ethiopia. The Sudanese bought 65,000 tons of through our program, the Technology for Africa, TAT we call it, got those 65,000 tons of seed. And within 2 seasons, the Sudanese are nearly self-sufficient in food. They moved from 25% to 54%. Ethiopia harvested 1 million tons of wheat last year through a technology that was started here in Nigeria by Dr. Adesina. This wheat variety is a heat-tolerant variety. A temperate crop cannot really survive here. So when he was minister, this was started in Lake Chad area by one Dr. Olabamiji, not me. And he actually endured all the Boko Haram insurgency issue and stayed there. You heard him recommending demand for national award. Yeah. In fact, when things got too hot, they moved it to the Kadawa area. Okay. And this wheat was so, the productivity was so high, it moved from 1.5 tons per hectare to 7 tons per hectare. But we didn't use it. The moment he left, everything was thrown out as usual, the usual policy somersault, as we call it. So when he became president, he took it to Sudan, we took it to Ethiopia, and these 2 countries are saying in the next 2-3 years, they're going to be totally self-sufficient and exporting wheat. So what should we do is more of a political economy issue. We don't lack ideas, we don't lack the techniques, we don't lack the people. It's about the will to do these things. And he cited several examples. The GES, for example, the Growth Enhancement Scheme.
What is the current state of that now? I mean, having raised it here, did he get positive feedback as to whether we're going to go back to it and ensure that this is a state, it works here?
Yeah, he made a very passionate appeal at the retreat that, look, in fact, he spoke directly to President Buhari and said, look, please relaunch this program. The GS program, for example, the Growth Enhancement Scheme that he started also, and the e-wallet, it's to put inputs into the hands of farmers. He recognized the fact that insecurity is an issue, all manner of things are issues, rain and all that. But the central issue is that farmers are not having the right inputs in their hands to grow. And we don't have the right ones. Productivity in African agriculture remains very low. People have spoken about it for 50 years. So this was the central message of his address, that we should relaunch this. Fortunately, we've been talking to the new Honorable Minister of Agriculture. In fact, we had a meeting with him 2 days ago. He's extremely receptive to it. We are hoping that at least these 2 low-hanging fruits will happen very quickly to bring down food prices.
Another thing that is related to this program is something that we also took on Governor Fayemi about yesterday, and he also spoke a little extensively about it, that it worked in the 50s, which was the extension services. And that the extension services was such a useful one in that it literally took the policies from the office of the minister to the various departments that are supposed to get these things done, to the states and to the farmers in the communities.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, how difficult do you think, or how significant a challenge do you think that would be for government to reinstate that?
I don't think it's difficult. Actually, we are suggesting even a more robust solution in the special agro-industrial processing zone, which we regard as a model that creates an end-to-end solution. And thankfully, again, the government has been very receptive to this. We've tremendous goodwill. I've explained this in many fora. The special agro zone seeks to congregate companies within geographic locations, ensure that we build infrastructure, we provide all of the things that investors require to operate within a secure environment. It's similar in a little bit to the special economic zones or the special export zone, but the distinctive thing about this SEPZ is that it is deliberately located within agrarian communities. It is somewhere between what we call the peri-urban areas. It is deliberate because what we want to do is actually to use policy to force a structural transformation of the economy. Without touching those 70% smallholder farmers, you cannot solve the poverty problem in Nigeria. So it is a very unique model. It's been acknowledged by everyone. Again, this was actually conceived by Dr. Adesina. It started here. It started here. It actually got to FEC. Everything was designed. There were Cargill, an American company, already brought $100 million. World Bank. Everybody was on board. And the first site, was to be at a place called Alakwe in Kogi State. When the new government came, they threw it aside. Again, he took it to the rest of Africa when he became president of the AfDB. And we are now in 18 countries. So it's in this process that he called us, and he called me and said, look, we need to do this in Nigeria. But we need to try again. So thank God, we started 2 years ago. COVID sort of took away 1 year of our time. But now we have finished all the design for 8 locations in this country: Kaduna, Kano, Kwara, FCT, Imo, Cross River, Oyo, and Ogun State. We are going to board next month. And immediately after that, this program is going to start. And in fact, we are planning a huge launching of this program with all the president of this DFI that I'm talking about, Islamic Development Bank. They brought now almost $170 million. IFAD, $100 million. AfDB, Africa Grow Together Fund. So we have $540 million for Nigeria alone. It is the biggest SCPZ. In fact, one location is bigger than some countries, what we are doing. So, and we believe that if we do this faithfully and execute this program, it's going to be structurally transforming of our communities.
And I know you spoke about how we needed to insulate some of these things from government interference and ensure that it runs consistently. That is still in the works, isn't it?
Yes. So, in fact, when you listen to the president's speech during the retreat, he specifically mentioned NSIA, Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority. They are going to be implementing this program. Of course, the Ministry of Agriculture is going to execute an agency, but NSIA, the process of procurement, of contractors, and all of that is going to be done by NSIA. Why? Because it's owned by both federal and all state government. But it also has its own fiduciary autonomy from all of the political issues that we normally have in our country. So, in fact, for me, the highlight of our visit this time around is the meetings we had with NSI, long meetings to agree on the modalities. And everybody is so excited that they're going to take this on it is not going to be business as usual.
Well, one of the challenges anyone would have, and I want to believe that that has also been considered, is the trust quotient between government and the people.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jimmy, I always talk about it.
Yeah.
The trust quotient in that when once people hear government, the trust is gone. So how has that been factored in to ensure that ultimately people own it?
Yeah. No, you're right, Ayo. There's no doubt about it. When promise is broken too many times, your default mode is to say, oh, there they go again. No, it's even us, we think like that. So there's no need to pussyfooty about anything. So what we have done is to ensure that while this is government-enabled, it's going to be private sector-driven. In fact, the whole model is such that all government is going to do is to build a structure. And this is what is happening everywhere. If you want things to... Political operators are not trained to do this. They are trained to do policy. They can't run business. And we have told this to everyone we meet in government all the time. So it is going to be a zone or zones where the money from AfDB and all that I'm mentioning is used to build the structures, put power, roads, irrigation, all of those. The details are in that brochure that I just gave to you in a summary form. And so what you have done is to create an enabling environment, so to say, in terms of fiscal structure, and also in terms of incentives. So we're also going to be giving a lot of incentives to attract people. This is one of the things that the President talked about. Unfortunately, a lot of our bureaucrats still don't understand that the private sector is not an enemy. In fact, they are partners in your progress. How many people can the government employ? The bulk of employment has to be in that place. They are also Nigerians. Private sector people are Nigerians.
Well, sometimes I wonder where did that thought come from?
I think it's a carryover of the so-called commanding heights of the economy model that we used to have, where government is the all-knowing, all-capable, and in those days, particularly for developing countries where with oil money and all of that, they think they can do anything. Now we all know that's not possible. That model cannot work.
I'd like you to speak a little more about the employment opportunities for each of the zones. But before that, there's this little element you mentioned about the bureaucracy. Now, there are many people who would want to get into the system, who would want to be a part of it. Definitely, needless to say, while, as you said, it's enabled by government, but, driven by the private sector, there is one way or the other. Those who are in government, who are in, the ministries, departments, and agencies, may also have some interests in being a part of it. And consequently, there may be the temptation to, sponsor, if I can use the term, their own people into the system. I'm wondering, what's the entry level for anyone who is in the private sector who wants to get into it, and how easy or not is it?
So, no, thank you. This is a question that some other people have been asking me. This is going to be open and transparent. This is going to be, as I said, the NSI is going to be driving it. We are going to have transaction advisors who are going. This is going to be announced. If you have any of your zones, for example, you are in Kano, whether you are an engineer of Kano or not, you are free to come and establish your company, your factory, your farm. And we're going to be providing a level playing field for everyone. This is really the success of a zone. To have a situation where you crowd in as many capable companies as possible, small, medium, large enterprises. For each of the zones, we're actually trying to find anchor investors, the big ones. We've talked to many of them, all the flour mill, the Dangotes, the Elephant Group, and all of them, But a zone is sometimes 600, 700 hectares of land. How many can you do? How many can you take? Yes, those are huge, huge stuff. I'll give you an example. In Ethiopia, for example, we visited an avocado company. This company, one company, is connected to 80,000 farmers. One company. In fact, there were two of them. between the two of them, they were connected to 100,000 farmers. That is the scale that we are talking about. That is what we have in mind. You cannot imagine Nigeria with our population. This is what we want to do. This is the only way to solve the poverty problem, to stem rural urban migration. Because you need to keep people in other places apart from the primate cities, that is capital cities, to work in peace, to be productive. As Dr. Adesina said, to turn zones of misery to zones of prosperity. People drift away to the capital cities because there are no jobs. There's no health center. All of our zones are going to be our schools, healthcare system. In fact, what we are doing is building security. They are all going to be fenced places. It's going to be, so this is actually creating secondary cities. It's actually creating entire cities.
Sounds really good.
Yeah.
One of the other things, I'm sorry,
no, please.
The only thing you're looking at is all the problems that can arise. But, one of the challenges that have been identified, as to why some things do not work, especially in host communities, is because some of the host communities do not feel that they belong or that it belongs to them.
They become hostile.
Rather than become host communities, they become hostile. Yeah. So, and a number of oil companies, still have those issues, such that to an extent they just take care of the heads of the communities, and once that is done, the people themselves do not have the drill down effect of these benefits. Yeah. So I'm asking or wondering how the host communities of these projects in the various zones are being considered or factored in.
So that's why the theater of operation for SAP are the states. That's why we are de-emphasizing the idea of somebody sitting in Abuja and running something in my village or Bomosh somewhere. Yeah. So it's going to be, because the states are the nearest people to these communities. So the states are being, they are going to pay the loan. I mean, these are cheap loan actually from the bank. But so we're giving them a lot of capacity. There's going to be what we call project implementation units at each state level. There's going to be very capable, savvy young people who will be running the procurement, running all of the oversight functions to see through the implementation process. So again, as I explained earlier, community heads cannot run farms. We want farmers. And this is why IFAD is part of the process. IFAD has global experience in doing these kinds of things. International Fund for Agricultural Development. They are part of this. They are bringing 100 million into the process. Their expertise actually is to form association of farmers, create all of those kinds of networks at the grassroots level. We identify with them very early because these are the farmers. This is not about digging oil and all that. This is about the basic things, transforming a local farmer who's using hoe and cutlass into a modern farmer in the next 10 years. What we have in mind is transformative. And in addition to those who are there, we also want to populate those places with young people. When you provide the necessary housing, healthcare and all that, we want to encourage agri-techs, young people to be in those zones.
So that means, pardon me to jump in, that means when you say they want farmers and transforming them from what they used to be to a bigger one, there has to be some level of education, change of mindset, growing their capacity. What's the thinking about that? Any concerns on that?
Yes. In fact, there are, if you look through that brochure, there are 4 components of this project, of this program. We're not calling it a project, it's a program. The first one is this infrastructure building and all that I talked about. Second part has to do a lot with this capacity building of the communities, of those who are going to be there. The good thing is that this is nothing, it's not rocket science. I give you an example. I've always quoted examples of the big, but let me quote a smaller country like Vietnam. Vietnam has 376 industrial parks. 376. Remember Vietnam and Nigeria, we ended the wars that we were fighting around 1970s, middle 70s. 3/4 of them are agro zones. Now, $46 billion have flown into those zones in the last 10 years. 60% of Vietnam GDP comes from those zones. Today, South Korea has over 1,000 industrial parks. About 460 are actually agro-processing zones of this kind. In 2018, the export from the Korean zones, those agro-foods, was about $11.8 billion. It is a tested model. It's working, even here in Africa. If you go to Gabon today, we have a park that the bank is also involved with. It's actually a forestry zone, processing timber products. They used to have almost $200 million, over $1 billion now. You go to Togo, this Gabon, then Togo, Arise, which is a company formed by Olam and Africa Finance Corporation. We're also involved with them. In the last 1 year, you need to, maybe we should organize a visit one day, because you guys are so involved with this now. We will actually be happy to organize.
Not a bad idea.
And in Ethiopia now has 24 industrial parks. Have about a third of them actually, again, agro-park. I cited the avocado guy earlier. So it's a model that we are late in coming into. It has worked. It's working. Okay. The only barrier is the political economy.
Okay. Now, while you were speaking the other time, you talked about this facility coming into the $520 or $540 million.
$540 million, yeah.
Being a loan. Is it a loan or a grant? What exactly is it?
You know, when you take a concessionary loan like from AfDB, it's almost like someone dashing you money. I give you an example. The loan from AfDB, you have 8 years of moratorium. You don't pay anything. In fact, some of these loans can be actually, the interest can be almost driven to zero base, you know, unless you are really bad, that you cannot pay back this loan. So that is the advantage of being part of these DFIs, especially Nigeria being the biggest shareholder of these banks. The issue of debt that the president talked about has to do a lot with the private sector debt that is creeping into most of our countries. You know, for almost 40% of African loans are private driven. The concessionary loans from developing banks are actually, you know, it's almost like a gift. You know, so those are, and all of our DFI partners are operating almost very similar platform. Is to help development. That's the name. Africa Develop is a developmental model to ensure that we do. That's what the world, those who have developed, that's what they've done.
Is it then saying that any private sector operator within each of these zones must make profit in order to return or pay for the use of the facilities?
Okay, so this is very interesting question.
You may not be able to expatiate this much, but you can.
No, I can give you. In fact, the model by the way, the model we're applying here in Nigeria is something that we have been developing as we go. You know, it's not been done in other African countries. We evolved this model based on the political economy of Nigeria, and we needed to find a solution. Now, for the private sector actors who will locate within the zones, we have reached an agreement with Bank of Industry. They have signed a memorandum with us to provide $1 billion. $1 billion. In fact, we agreed this since 2018. Every private actor that will locate in the zones, they will give them concessionary interest at concession interest rate of 7-8% for 8-10 years. You know, again, unless you are really so bad. And then you already have the enabling environment. You don't have to be providing power, water for yourselves. All of those are going to be there.
Because part of a certain part of that question is such that even the BOM themselves, they've got challenges wherein people who were supposed to come back and service or fulfill the obligations don't do that.
Yeah.
And so that's why it says, look, does it have to be really bad? And if that happens in that case, but a good thing to see that you're developing that model such that people don't come with that mindset that, look, this is my own entitlement.
No, from my knowledge of BOI, it's probably one of the best run institutions in our country. They have less than 3% default. 3%, because we do our due diligence also when we are dealing with a partner. BOI was recently Fitch ranking AAA, just like the Africa Development Bank. Check the papers. I don't know whether you saw it. Just about 2 weeks ago. So that is, for us, should be a pride. This is in the midst of all the crisis and chaos. Yeah. There are still oceans of excellence, like NSI, like BOI. So we actually went after this agency.
Yeah, but you know, the other part of it is, wouldn't it have been better if, rather than going after those specialized banks, because DMBs, these are banks that people expect to also be on board. Yeah. Is there any challenge with ensuring that the DMBs are on board and meet up with that standard as well?
Yeah, so we have to find what is going to work for us. Okay. You're right. I mean, this is, and BOI see themselves as a bank that supports, particularly to ensure the production activities are ongoing. You know, you can, if you look at the operations very closely, they have, and I don't think we advertise ourselves enough. You know, I looked at what they do, and I've seen so many, and I make sure to watch them. I think there's a program they do on Wednesdays. Yeah. So I'm sure there will be others, and we should actually drive others up. But what makes for a good institution? Leadership and vision, and the, you know, transparency, accountability, which we hope will get in others. But you know, they are not the only partner we are working with. But I just mentioned it because of Ayos's question on the private sector. Yeah. We have others we are trying to also encourage.
But is this part of the thinking of the AfDB president when he said, youths don't need handouts, they need investment?
Yes, yes. So the proposal of the president on the youth issue is what he calls youth entrepreneurship investment banks. It's a new model of banking run by young people, for young people, not octogenarians.
So not young, the emphasis, not young youths.
No, it's going to be savvy young people running their own banks. And you know, look at the fintechs, look at all the hubs that they are running. You know, these young people, they are doing very well.
They're doing very well.
You only need to give people confidence. And he believes so much in that. He believes in young people. He believes in the women are able to do. So it's a new model that he's proposing, and it's been widely accepted. He has spoken with so many heads of state. So, and you know, here, hopefully, he has made that proposal to the cabinet retreat, and we are hoping that this is also going to be established here in Nigeria. Okay. You know,
permit me to take you very quickly back to the issue of the SAPZ. We'll go back to this other issue shortly. Sustainability of these zones. Now, just as you said, it's going to be like a city within a city.
Yeah.
Now, providing all of the infrastructure, power supply, electricity, roads, and all those things. What's the sustainability plan?
Yeah.
So that it's not just, okay, after 1 or 2 years, then we'll begin to have issues, and then it goes on that.
Yeah. So we have several levels of sustainability. Social, economic, environmental, financial, especially. You know, for the most part, projects fail when they don't have capital, so especially operating capital. We are going to avoid this, you know, because that's why we want it to be a business, you know. It has to be a business. So we have to be a business that's competitive and profitable. That's why all of the structures that are being provided are being provided. So a business person doesn't have the excuse to fail. But also importantly, market. You know, one of the problems, market, both domestic and global. That's why we're involving a lot of partners. This week we've been to the French embassy. We've seen the British. UK Knife is working with us. We've done quite a lot of groundwork. In fact, the French have volunteered actually to do a road show of their businessmen, business people, not men, business people, you know, for us to sell this to them. We are working with the UK. We are working with the president was selling this all over the US when he went recently. And beyond that also, the part of the job of the transaction advisor is going to be this advocacy. The launching that I was talking about is actually not the usual launching of just making noise. Yeah. It's for market sounding. To actually, and we are talking also to all of the big players. If you go to Lekki Zone, for example, a lot of the people being crowded into those zones were brought by the design, build, operate managers themselves. We don't care where they come from. China, Netherlands, Britain, wherever, because the market is out there. But more importantly, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area.
You know, this has to succeed. Pardon me, I'm just wondering, is there going to be, I'm sure they will be thinking in that regard, to pull this, have this critical mass of all of these local and international partners who are involved to ensure that peradventure there's that obstacle of the political economy. They put pressure to ensure that this doesn't fail.
Yes, and this is what, you know, on the 30th of August, that's where we started this year. We actually had a meeting with all the 7 governors and FCT, you know, the location, and all the 4 key ministers. We had a 2.5 hours call on Zoom with them to sell the implementation plan. And all of them agreed. We've been doing a lot of this, like I said, a lot of groundwork. And part of it also, what the president was saying at the retreat, is to sensitize people to the endless possibilities of what this holds. In addition to the other GS program, the e-wallet, all of these are complementary. You know, because the SAPZ provides you the platform, the location, the locational advantage. Everything else can be done there, mechanization, whatever it is that you want to do. And this has to be done by Nigerians, foreigners, whoever it is. All we want is to create competitive zones, create the market. The markets are there. You'll be shocked. People ask us, you guys have everything. Why are you not?
Part of the strategy target, so to speak, of this program, you know, to use the term, are women and children and young people, women and young people. Getting them into this will take a lot of communicating over quite a significant length of time, especially given that we're spread all over the nation, just as you know, with different levels of literacy, different levels of exposure and all of that. What's the plan?
So I'm hoping that we'll be working with people like you on this. Like you said, we've done a bit of what we can do, but this is just touching the surface. We have to reach all communities, all levels. As a matter of fact, one of the discussions we had this week was because Dr. Victor Oladokun was on the team. I deliberately really asked him to please join the team because of his emphasis on strategic communication. So he can observe everything we are doing. So we'll be reaching out to you guys on this. And he always points to us, all the things that we need to do, communities we need to reach. So, and we are putting in a budget into this whole thing on communication, you know, because we can see that lack of knowledge is one of the biggest hiatus for a project to fail. Someone who doesn't understand the basis, you know, and like you, and I mean, you can't blame people. Trust has disappeared. Trust has disappeared. People just, oh, they come again. So when people say it, I say, yeah, I understand. I also think that way. So we need to prove this thing. We need to make sure it works, you know. And, you know, just to pivot to something else that has been discussed on this FX and all of that in this country. You know, the fundamental issue is not about shortage of FX. And this is what, again, the SAPZ model. It's not about the argument about, you know, we don't have FX and all. It's because Nigeria has been so oil dependent. I've made this point, and we need to make that point. When I was citing Vietnam, I was remembering. Do you know what the export of Vietnam is this year, 2020? $384 billion. 384. You know the export of Nigeria? 34 billion.
Despite of the so-called oil.
And we have 200 billion people, despite the oil. And that was actually oil. 76% is oil. 2% agriculture. and maybe sesame, all these raw crops. Now, why am I referring to this? The fight we are fighting is because of our failure over the years to diversify this economy that we want to do. Diversification has several levels. You have the horizontal diversification, for example, where you convert cassava to starch, you convert this to, and they earn you greater value. For example, today you go to the market, how much is maize? 140,000 naira or something per ton. But you convert that maize to industrial starch, you get like 5-6 times the value of that. But what these economies have done is they never stopped working agriculture, modernizing agriculture, but they moved on to something else. The first item, Google it, the first item you see on the 10 top exports from Vietnam is electronics, machinery, 154 billion. 154 billion. 5 times what oil Nigeria got. And you find Nigeria's export profile for the last 30 years, the same thing. Oil, oil, oil. So what am I saying? It is not about fighting over this small pie. It is to pivot away from this revenue concentration that we have. It always amazes me when all this discussion is always about some abuki, somebody's this one and that one. It's about encouraging ourselves to move away into higher quality, what they call developed country products. All of these countries sat down and said, what does the global market require from me? And they did that. You see Malaysia, their export also. And by the way, you look at oil. We are not oil rich. We are all dependent. We are not. If you divide Nigerian citizens by the barrel of we export, $122, $160 per person. For UAE, $6,500 per person. For Saudi, over close to $4,000 per person. We are not oil rich.
In fact, that brings me to the point where the AfDB president made about trade and competitiveness in Africa. And he said, look, the figures he read was the cost of exporting 100 tons of cargo in Nigeria is $35,000 compared to $4,000 in Ghana.
In Ghana.
These are issues we need to address here.
Yes, because of corruption at the ports. It's nothing else. This government is not going to government. You have 11 items. I read that report. 11 items. Someone wants to export sesame or cassava. You are asking him, everybody's there. NDLA, this one. It's almost like they want to kill these people. It's almost that they don't want to export. It's almost like they want to kill Nigerian economy. So government really needs to do something, and that's why I think Dr. Adeshi, at that forum, for example, maybe he didn't want to go into those details, but this is what we know. 11 items was itemized by the exporters. Only 2 of them are legal.
Wow. Oh, now, so where then do we put all of the ease of doing business efforts of the federal government over how many years? There were sample states, there was Kano and Lagos, where they said, okay, let's crash all of these processes so that if you want to do business, you don't have to go to so many of these loops that you've had to go to previously. Let's try it and see if it will work. Where do you see that going? How do you see that? How do you see us scaling up on that ease of doing business thing?
It has to do with the will to do, like as we said earlier. We just have to look at ourselves in the mirror. Why is everybody going to Togo, to Cote d'Ivoire? When we went to launch the SAPZ in Togo on June 6th, part of the trip was to go to the Lomé port, which is probably the most popular, and everybody goes there. So the guy was showing us on the horizon. He said, you see all those ships there? They are going to Nigeria, but they bet here. They stay here because they don't feel secure in Nigerian water. So they will come only to offload or to load up 2 days to the time. Who collects all the rent money? Togo. And because, I don't know, the report the president was referring to was in The Guardian a couple of weeks ago, where airplanes are leaving Nigeria empty because they are just tired of the hassle. we are losing about, if I quote correctly, about $250 billion in terms of the food exports. Because they said, look, we are just tired of this. You know, every agency is collecting illegal money. I can say it. You know, this is what is, and they interviewed a lot of these exporters. So we have to address, it's become a bottleneck for trade, for industrialization. I spoke with the man who is the biggest producer of cocoa and cashew nut in Nigeria. I said, why are you not processing here? He said, I'll come to your house. He actually came to my house. When he finished, I was tired. When he enumerated, he said, it took me 24 days within Lagos to move something from one place to the port. That takes 30 minutes. He said it took 20 days. Goodness. Eventually, he was almost losing the goodwill they have built to the export market that he has opened up in America. He used this money to, again, transship everything to Calabar port. He said to me, I can't remember whether 30 million naira or something, so that he doesn't lose that market and the goodwill, because they had worked so hard to convince those people that Nigerian cocoa is what being sold there. He said, I had to use my money, either 60 something or 30, I can't remember, to Calabar port. It was some fanfare that people, even the MD of MPA went there. If you look on the papers, I think it was in early this year. So the guy, he came to my house and he was explaining. He said, look, this is what is happening. He explained the process of cashew processing. He said, look, they have seasons. Obumasho Cashew, which is my hometown, says one of the best. We are operating there. We have been able to get certification and everything. I said, please process here. He said, let me explain it to you. He said, they are seasonal. The ones in Nigeria ends around April or May. The season for cashew then move to, I think, Côte d'Ivoire, which will peak around July, August, and then Guinea. He said, we are explaining to them that we should be giving a free transportation within these West African countries. He asked the government to give him his own port. He said, I'm going to pay for it.
Sir, did he get it?
No, they didn't give him. This is the point. He said, I cannot rely on this port where I will spend endless months, you know. And it's not that it's impossible. It is possible. We are saying this so that our country can move forward, you know. He didn't get it.
No, Prof, I'm sorry I have to take you back in time.
Please.
We had a very successful, very profitable, very productive and very profitable First Republic economy. What are the things that made it work then? That if we could only scale up, and to use Chamberlain's terminology, to include some form of technology that will scale up what we had then, and use the same system, just scale up in terms of technology and modernize them. What is it that we did then that we stopped doing, that if we could do them now, would help us?
So this is, I talked about TAT, right? The Technology for Africa, that was the target. Improve seeds, improve seedlings, improve technologies, techniques of production. Chief Awolowo had ranches in Fashola in Ibadan, in a number of places. One of the policy people in Oyo State was telling me, he said, when we went to some of those sites, it's like they were built just 2 years ago. He said the quality. So what do they need? This is what the whole world has done. Africa is the only place where we haven't had a green revolution. Asia had a green revolution, and a green revolution always is followed by an industrial revolution. You know, so what do you want to do? Create the necessary environment, labs, basic certification, testing. What Dr. Additional was doing with the wheat, for example. By the way, those technologies they apply to all the crops. You can do maize, you can do anything, and we want to bring them back. Under this arrangement, we are going to bring them back.
Well,
we need to wrap up.
Just one quick one. How many people in how many years will this program employ?
We estimate direct 1.5 million people, so you can calculate the indirect employment. This is going to be huge, and for every direct job, you can always multiply it like 5, 6, 7 times. It's always cascades downward. If, for example, you have a zone, someone is producing cassava, there'll be someone who wants to make flour, high quality flour, and we've had all kinds of inquiries. Wants to make starch, and then of course down the value chain, those who are going to sell, those who are going to do this. So it is transformative.
So people can always forward their questions. We'll forward them because this is, you clearly heard it, it's strategy that's something that's going to work. So we'll be looking forward to that, and by all means we'll always be available to let people get as much information as possible such that this can work. So we thank you for coming on, Professor Oyebanji Oyelaron Oyeyinka, Senior Special Advisor on Industrialization to the President, AfDB.